for all negative emotions, including stress, anxiety, fear, panic. They all have you holding your breath. And you can't really be angry and breathe. That's why we always tell somebody who's angry, breathe, and then they get angrier, because that's not really what they want to hear while they're angry, especially if you have little kids, or if I'm talking to my grandkids, they go crazy if I tell them that. But the reality is that our brains need to move and breathe.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Trinity podcast, where we interview top holistic experts and bring you natural solutions for modern day wellness. Let's get started with your host, Dr. Jacqueline.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining the Wellness Trinity podcast. I'm Dr. Jacqueline from thewellnesstrinity.com, where we provide natural solutions for modern day wellness. Today, we're going to discuss with Dr. Patrick Porter from BrainTap.com, mental health and coping with COVID-19, neuroscience expert. He's a neuroscience expert and is going to share his wellness strategy to reduce anxiety and panic. Just a little disclaimer before we get started, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. What you do with the information is to be used at your discretion, as the recommendations are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. This episode was sponsored by Cellcore Biosciences. Creating supplements that work is what they do, and restoring hope and health is who they are. To the general public, if you're interested about their in-depth protocol, go to thewellnesstrinity.com/Cellcore Detox. So I met Dr. Porter a few years ago, actually a few times at the ANMA convention in Las Vegas, which is a huge naturopathic convention that happens annually in August. And I've tried his BrainTap a few times, and I always knew there was something about it, but just like every other supplement or product I bring into the Wellness Trinity, I like to do my research and make sure that, I know what's going on, and then also have a purpose for promoting it and encouraging it for my clients. So now that I've been working on my cerebral detox program, which is all centered around the brain and making sure that functions optimally, I thought, well, I better tap into the BrainTap, if you know what I mean. So I really wanted to learn more, and I've been reaching out to one of his account managers there, Sean, and she's been a wealth of knowledge and just showing me how to incorporate this into my practice. And now that we're dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety during this coronavirus, I thought what better time to bring on Dr. Patrick Porter and talk about this BrainTap. So Patrick Porter is the founder of the BrainTap. He's the Chief BrainTap Officer at BrainTap, I should say. And he created with a singular mission in mind to better 1 billion brains. With its proprietary app and headset technology, BrainTap enables users to tackle the challenges of today's stressful world and enhance quality of life through improved brain health. With over 800 uniquely encoded audio sessions, BrainTap empowers users to reduce stress, sleep better, and maximize performance. Dr. Porter has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, People, Entrepreneur, and INC magazines, and on ABC, NBC, CBS, and the Discovery Channel. He is head of mind-based studies at Quantum University, and is a licensed trainer of NLP. He is the author of 6 books, including the popular Thrive in Overdrive: How to Navigate Your Overload in Lifestyle. Dr. Porter, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here, Jacqueline.
So, I've been really intrigued as I've been studying the brain about neuroplasticity. Can you first describe for the audience, what is that?
Right. Think of neuroplasticity the same way you might think of a computer. We buy a computer, and after time, that computer starts to slow down. So we go buy another computer. The reason we're doing that is that the systems get old, and the speed of the computer isn't fast enough. So think of brain speed as neuroplasticity. Also, if you were to go back with me in time 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, 20 to 10 years ago, they thought that once we had our neurons, we didn't have any more. But now they have something called neurosprouting, which means when you start doing new things, you start exploring new pathways, you start not doing the same old thing every day, your brain literally can create more of these neurons. So when you think about neuroplasticity, there's the Hebb's law says that those neurons that fire together wire together. So that's what we're talking about here. And the whole thing now, of course, with what's going on here with COVID is everybody's doing the same thing every day. It's like Groundhog's Day for everybody. There's no change in it. So the brain is used to patterns, and it's starting to create new patterns because we can't get out and do the old patterns. So if we took a brain of somebody who was 65 years old with no changes, they didn't do anything. They drove home the same way every day from work. They drank the same six-pack while they watched the news every night. They passed out on the easy chair. Then they had dinner, they went to bed. That brain would actually atrophy, not just because of the behaviors, but because of lack of use. Our brain loves to conserve energy. So it uses 25% of the energy of the whole system. So when you think about this neuroplasticity, the reason that it doesn't change that much in the past was there wasn't that much to change. Now we're hit with technology, we're hit with 24-hour news cycle, all the things that are going on. Our brain is getting stressed out all the time. So we're getting a lot of more neural pathways through this experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So when we're talking about anxiety and depression and things like that, I mean, a lot of that is stuff we could be, I'm thinking that we can rewire our brain so that we can be happy and we can deal with stress a lot better, correct?
Yes, when you think about emotions, especially negative emotions, there's a couple qualities to those that we really want to shift. One is for all negative emotions, including stress, anxiety, fear, panic, they all have you holding your breath. And you can't really be angry and breathe. That's why we always tell somebody who's angry, breathe, and then they get angrier, because that's not really what they want to hear while they're angry, especially if you have little kids, or if I'm talking to my grandkids, they go crazy if I tell them that. But the reality is that our brains need to move and breathe. So with anxiety, when you think of any negative emotion too, as well, we're talking about the past, and our body is a recording of the past. So if we start feeling those negative emotions, really it's all stemming from past thoughts, ideas, or concepts, or the future that isn't good. Buddha once said, all unhappiness stems from unfavorable comparisons. So when you think about, if you are not liking your past in relation to its present, or your present in relation to the future, that's going to bring about these feelings in, like what's going on right now, for instance, tying it back to COVID, because we don't know when this is all going to end. That's really bad for the brain. Our brain thrives in outcomes. So it says, okay, what are we going to do today? We're used to, let's go to work, let's see patients, let's help them get results, let's make our living, let's pay our payroll, let's, have a great relationship. Whatever that is, our brain is used to all of those things. Now we're being confronted with a whole new set of rules, and without certainty. Certainty plays a big role in all of these emotions too. And so that's why when somebody, for instance, as an example, they start exercising. And when they start exercising, their psychology changes. They start feeling better. They start feeling up. Well, what they did was, the brain in exercise, there's a big connection there for neuroplasticity, which you talked about earlier, but also we get a big dump of neurotransmitters. Our brain is the most powerful pharmacy on earth. We can release 30,000 different neurochemicals with the right thoughts. We can also release negative thoughts. So as we're thinking about these different depression, anxiety, fear, and all those things, we're very fortunate at BrainTap because we've partnered with 6 really large universities. They're the same size as like an MIT, and we have been to MIT too, but we don't have a partnership with them yet. Duke University is 1% owner of our company. But when we look at our other universities, like the ones in India that are, we have what's called Government Institute of Medical Sciences in Nimmans, which is their neurological functioning hospital, the biggest one in the world. And they're doing studies for us right now on depression and anxiety, because what I believe is happening is the nervous system gets locked into a cybernetic loop. We call it sympathetic survivor syndrome. So when you think about our bodies and they get locked into this stress, some people go to sleep at night and wake up stressful in the morning. You should be waking up rested, hey, this is a great day. What are we going to do today? And there's a big reason that we need to interrupt that pattern and get people to think differently. And I think meditation, breathing techniques, they do psychotropic breathing now. That's a big thing, like with Wim Hof, when you look at it on the internet. But any breathing technique, I mean, of course we have BrainTap, but any breathing technique is going to help you to get out of these negative emotions. And also, we always would tell people in our clinics, even with BrainTap, we tell them, our doctors will say, you have 3 options. You can either go learn ballroom dancing. Of course, everybody runs from that. And then, or you can learn how to do yoga, which is really good, or learn martial arts like Tai Chi. And the reason for that is we know when we've tested them with our HRV system, which measures the nervous system and how it functions, we know that those people that do those exercises, they have the best functioning nervous system. And right now, people that have a really good functioning nervous system, they don't get depression, they don't get anxiety, they don't get worry, because their body is in sync with their reality, and they're what we call more present. If you're more present, like in your relationships, you're more present for your kids, you're more present for your clients or patients, that shifts your neurochemical relationship, and you can trigger the right neurons to trigger the right emotional release. We're if you can think like this, we're electrically activated but chemically motivated. So we have electrical thought, and then we have a chemical reaction that happens in the body. That chemical reaction shows up as an emotion, energy and motion. But all these negative emotions have no motion. So it's like if you put too much light through your light bulb, eventually what will happen is that light bulb is going to burn out. Most people find this happening, they get adrenal exhaustion or they get fibromyalgia. We have a really good study going on right now in Brazil at San Clarita University for fibromyalgia. The government is actually paying $100,000 to test it, because we showed that if we can relax the nervous system, the symptoms of fibromyalgia aren't as obvious or not even present. So, but it's something you have to do. You have to practice. A lot of people just think, I'm going to go out, be stressed out, be angry, upset. Right now, the worst thing that can happen to somebody is to be angry and upset with what's going on. In another one of my favorite sayings to my clients is, he or she that angers you conquers you. So you don't want to give away your power of happiness to another person or to an event. I mean, we can't do anything about this. I mean, if I could wave a magic wand and there'd be no COVID, then wow, that'd be great. I'd probably getting a lot of money too, but that's not happening, right? So we have to deal with what's out there.
Yeah, we had to figure out how to have peace within the storm. And life is never going to be perfect, and we're going to have our ups and downs. Obviously, this is a big, wrench in the middle of, none of us thought this was ever going to happen probably in our lifetime. But it's incredible that you have a technology that we're going to dive into that can really just help people get out of that sympathetic dominant mode and more into a parasympathetic dominant mode, which is what I always talk about with my clients as well, that we can't really heal our body if we're in that sympathetic state all the time, just like what you said, when we're in that go, that constant stress. And we're living like that normally in life. I feel like almost this COVID situation is a blessing in some way, because it helps people to just stop. And some people, at least, some people like me and you are probably still going, because we're trying to help people in this time. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who just have a break with their job, and what perfect time to just really think about dealing with their root causes of stress and heal their body. So, Dr. Porter, the BrainTap, I am just so excited to talk about this with you, because you're the inventor of this thing, and what better person to bring on the show than the person that actually created this technology. Can you tell us a little bit about it, and then how does that affect neuroplasticity? Like, why is this so good for us during this time?
Sure. Well, first of all, just so everyone knows that everything we do with BrainTap, we have research to back up. So if I say something, we probably have a study. But I'll tell you a research study we did just recently in Florida with 30 women. They were 55 to 65. They were all on the dementia scale, and they all took the test. We used Cambridge Science's, cognitive testing, and we used a device called the New Mind, which measures neuroplasticity. It's actually one of the doctors that was at iridology as well, Dr. Kelly Miller. He wrote a book called Saving Your Brain. He might be a good one for you to interview too.
Oh,
for
wow.
your show. And what we did was he did a study where he had their medical doctors all diagnosed them with dementia. The testing at Cambridge Science showed they had dementia. We measured their brain before, and you can't really measure neuron connections. So I know somebody out there is going to say, you can't measure neuron. But what you can do is you can measure the energy potential, the voltage in the brain before and after. And they know that with that, you can use an algorithm to figure out how much neuroplasticity is happening. But the exciting thing is now, because we can measure that, we had 64% neuroplasticity in 6 weeks. And the most exciting part for these women, they weren't on the scale anymore. They did not have the dementia scale because it had to do with brain speed. And what we found when you're talking about neuroplasticity, we found that their left hemisphere, when we scanned them and did a brain map, that their left hemisphere was actually operating slower than their right hemisphere.
Mm.
And they also had a high degree of delta activity, which is usually associated with sleep.
Mhm.
And if you have that going, you're not going to metabolize food. You're not going to digest. Just like when you're talking about sympathetic overload, we call that the survivor brain. And then you have the healing brain. So the parasympathetic is the healing brain. And if you never make that switch, you're not metabolizing all the great nutrition. You're not getting the rest that you need. If you can do the biomarkers, like even with smartwatches now today, or Oura rings or whatever you're using, you will see that when you start getting good sleep, when you start relaxing, that all your scores go up. In sleep really is the magic weapon here. If you can sleep deeply, the brain and the body will reset. There's an innate intelligence in us that knows what to do, knows how to do it, if we would just get out of the way, but our thinking gets in the way a lot. And of course, that can exacerbate the stress response. And then that causes us not to digest or metabolize food. The biggest reason people miss work in the world is irritable bowel syndrome. It goes undiagnosed because people think they just have an upset stomach, but the problem is they have some pretty big gut issues, which you probably deal with. The gut-brain axis, the HPA axis is so important. We have three brains in our head. When we talk about neuroplasticity, we have one brain in our head, I should say, excuse me, and we have one brain in our heart. Science now shows we have 40,000 neutrino cells in our heart. It acts as a little brain. That little brain actually controls the gut and the head, because the neurotransmitters that people are triggering through these different activities in life and sleep actually happen in the gut. There's more neuron connections in your gut than there are in your head and between your ears. So it's the body. That's why when we're talking about emotions, once the electrical signal gets sent, the body takes over. That's the habits and patterns and beliefs that we have, and the pattern runs. So we need to interrupt that pattern at the thought level so it doesn't have a cascading effect to our body. Because once it's in our body, it's kind of like there's an old expression, you let the horse out of the barn. It's easier to keep the horse in the stable if you keep the door shut. But if people get stressed out or angry and upset, and they don't know how to regain that composure, some people, in other words, some of your clients and somebody out there listening might identify with this. You get angry in the morning and you're still angry at night. Well, that shows that your nervous system isn't regulating right. One of my favorite teachers, Paramahansa Yogananda, he wrote his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. He says, we should be more like children. When babies get mad, they cry, they get upset. You look over 15 minutes later, they're playing. That's not a parent. What we do as adults is we get mad, we get upset, we call our brothers and sisters, our friends, and we tell them all about it. And we keep instead of having a prayer, wheel where we keep calling everybody, asking for, we're propagating all this negativity. And every time we talk about those negative experiences, it might be good for the person saying it. They get a catharsis a little bit, they feel better. But the reality is they just slime that other person. And we all have friends like that. We know, I'm not going to pick up the phone because it's whoever. And we know all they're going to do is tell me what's going on at the PTA meeting, or whatever, something that doesn't even matter to you, but something that they feel like they need to tell the world that isn't positive. Then we have that other friend, we know I'm going to talk to her or him because they're going to uplift me. I always tell people, when people see you, they should feel like, all right, I'm going to get an energy bump here because this is a person that's positive, that's upbeat. And, we always say life's too short to deal with unhappy people, so we need to shift people. Happiness really is an inside job. And there's a lot of reasons to be unhappy. You just have to find one good reason every day to be happy. And your physiology, your psychology, your body's health will be tremendously improved.
Wow. So the brain affects the gut and then the gut affects the brain. Which one do you think that affects one more than the other? Or is it equal?
No, I think it's pretty equal. I mean, if, for instance, all you have to do if you want to see a kid's brain go crazy, give them a Snickers. What happens? I mean, all you have to do is take really well-behaved kids, say, you've been so good, we're going to give you this treat. And then before you know it, they're getting punished and put into their room because you just gave them a stimulant, really a drug that influenced them. So that's a gut thing.
Uh-huh.
So the brain's trying to compensate and bring back balance. Or it could be you just heard bad news. You might be feeling really good, but then you heard bad news. Now your brain, now they go, I can't eat, my stomach hurts,
Mm.
because you thought of it that way. So there's a connection. There's also a big reason why there's more deaths on Monday morning than any other day of the week,
Wow.
because your heart brain doesn't like what you're doing. It doesn't like the work you're doing. They say that almost 70% of the world's population doesn't like the job they have. And I don't think it's
Wow.
not that they don't like it. I think that it got old, and it's just like, we know what's going on with all the divorces. I mean, it's because that they want that same loving feeling that happened when you first fell in love. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't always happen. You got to work through those relationships. You got to keep the relationship alive, right? You can't just let it,
Mm-hmm.
if you just let it go by its side and do its own thing, you're probably going to lose that love and feeling, because you're going to notice the underwear in the middle of the room, the toothpaste cap off, they leave the TV on, or, whatever is the, whatever the thing is that bugs you, they don't do the dishes, whatever it is, those things are going to start spotlighting your thought process and behavior. And the same thing happens in our own personal life. If we're always focusing on our faults, we should all have our own success reel. It says, what are the successes I had today? What are the successes I had last week? What are my big successes in the past? And when we wake up in the morning, I always teach my clients, hey, run through a success reel and then say to yourself before you wake up, I wonder what I'm going to add to that today. Because then with expectancy comes results and change. So then the brain starts looking around. You might have noticed, if you've ever bought a new car, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, you thought you had the only one like that, the only color, the only brand. But then you drive it home, you say, wow, where did all these cars come from? I thought I had the only one. They call that our reticular activating system. That's a part of our brain. They also call it the default mode network in neurology. So this network is always running in the background. It's like our default network, if you will. It's like a computer. If we don't do anything else, it's how the computer sets at rest. We all have that, and we've trained it, believe it or not. So we've trained this default network to either be optimistic or to be pessimistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, it's better to be disappointed every once in a while than wake up every morning and be disappointed. That's the pessimist wakes up every morning and is disappointed. I mean, yeah, life isn't always going to go our way. We're not always going to get what we want, but we should at least be looking forward to something being positive and productive. We're going to end this thing that we're in right now. It's going to be over. We're going to have our quote new reality, whatever that is, and we're going to have to survive it. And hopefully we'll all be better prepared, because the people really suffering here are the ones that didn't take care of their nervous system, didn't take care of their health. And now they're going, wait a minute, if everybody who's dying, pretty much, I mean, 99% of the people already have some compromising physical condition. So let's work with that. Let's get with a natural medicine doctor, somebody who deals with healing instead of dealing with sick care. I mean, most people think of doctors only as sick care, but there's a whole group of people, like at the iridology conference, those are people that they can go and get wellness care from. So
Yes, I love that.
that's what
Wellness
we want to
care.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and then this is all a part of it. And I love that you brought up about change and how it can be very difficult for people to change. And so we can get stuck in these negative habits and patterns that are very destructive to even our health. And I find, as, holistic doctor, that I could tell people things I could just tell them to the blue in the face. We got to eat vegetables, we need to have green juice and do all these healthy things, exercise, get sun, and yet they might not do it. And this is why the brain really intrigued me, because I was like, well, how can I get in, like, tap into their, emotions and things like that, so that I can help them make a change? Because a lot of this stuff is easy at the fundamental level to just know that, okay, I need to do certain things. And so, can you explain why it's so hard for people to change?
Well, I think the main thing is our brain loves patterns, and it takes a lot of energy to change. So some people just do it like for one day. Most everybody has heard the expression, it takes 21 days to make a change. You probably even heard that.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that's never been proven. But what they do know is there's a certain period of time when you do something. So what I like to tell people, think of it like this. We just went into a field and we needed to get across that field. And it's got big, tall grass. That tall grass takes a long time for us to get through. We have to pour through it, and we finally get through that. And then what happens is when we get to the other side, we've broken down that. Think of that first time through, that's like one neural path. That's one neurological connection. Now, if we never go back on that path again, nothing's going to happen. That's going to grow back and not going to even be there. But if every day we got on that path and we walked that path, then we told other people to walk that path, pretty soon we could run down that path really fast. That's our habits and patterns. So we have some like that we don't like, and most people have at least a short list. There's not been too many people ascend in my lifetime. So there's something going on with them and they want to change them. But when they go to change, a habit is something you do without conscious thought or commitment, but you do it anyway. So I always tell people, if you could train your brain to do something you don't want to do, but you do it anyway, and it's going to assist you and make you healthier, would you be willing to entertain that? That's where spaced repetition comes in. So in all the studies that you read about or heard about, 21 days, Duke did one. I mean, not Duke, I'm sorry. Harvard did it, and so did Stanford, reinforced it. They said it took 18 months to make a change if you do it on your own. If you go out into the world and you make a change, 18 months. But if you use visualization and relaxation techniques like BrainTap, it only takes 21 days. Now, we think it takes about 3 months because that's what we've seen in most big life changes. Like, let's say somebody wants to lose weight or stop smoking or, get rid of stress. Those are all patterns. So think of triggers. Think of our reality. The nice thing, we have computers now, so we can make the analogy between the computers. So in our computer screen, we have what they call a graphical user interface, GUI screen. So our life is like a GUI screen. And the best example I can give you is, let's say you're walking through the mall and you see somebody coming at you and it's a good friend. You haven't seen them maybe in 10 years, but you remember as you get closer, you're going to start feeling happy. You're going to run programs. You're going to feel really good. When you meet them, you're going to give them a hug. On the same note, if you're in the mall and you see somebody that maybe they were difficult to you or they didn't like you, something was going on, and you might even duck into a store to avoid them because it brought up uncomfortable feelings. And that was just that trigger. Another analogy for the listeners, just so they understand a little bit more, let's say that you and I are driving down the road, we're having a great time. You just won the lottery. You're telling me all about it. We're cruising down the road. We got the windows down. Everything's fine. All of a sudden we hear a siren and we see red and blue flashing lights. You're driving. So what happens? You're going to immediately stress out, right? You're going to go,
right,
oh,
yeah.
What did I do? I said, you're doing the speed limit. You're listening to the favorite song on the radio. Everything's fine. So you slowly pull over that. And when you slowly pull over, the policeman goes around you. What happens? You go, whew, man. You think you got away with something and you didn't do anything in the first place. These are all so these are all the mind games our brain takes because of triggers from the outside world. And that happens day in and day out. And when you started to set up these triggers, who trained you? Mom and dad, brother, sister, preachers and teachers. All of these people taught you how to respond to those situations. And if you had great training, which some people do, they have great training, a problem comes up, they handle it. They're the go-to person for those things. But 90% of the people probably don't. Hopefully most medical doctors are like that, because somebody comes to you with a problem, you got to solve that problem. Those people that solve the problem, they help the most people and make the most money. That's in any field in our world.
Right.
You want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So I think making the changes, first, most people don't have an outcome in mind. They don't have a proven method to get you there, and they give up too early. That's why, like, even in Think and Grow Rich, they have that three feet from gold, because they tell the story of the guy that stopped digging because he wanted to find a diamonds all over the world, but he stopped digging in his own backyard. When they went to bury him, there was one of the biggest diamond mines in the world right there on his own property, and he was traveling all over the world trying to find it. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a great story for the book. And I think that's true of us all. We all have hidden talents. We all have I have, in my first book I wrote called Awaken the Genius, I talk about everyone has a genius inside of them. You have a talent and a skill. It's just, are you letting it shine, or did you put a bushel basket over it because you were afraid people wouldn't like it?
Right. I agree. And I feel like that's part of the healing process as well, is to uncover that hidden gem that's inside each person, that like you said, every single person has this. And I think part of that reason why 70% you said people don't like their job is because they're not running in the lane that they're supposed to be running in. I've been there, so I know. And
Right.
once I took a lot of time and effort to shift my lane to where I should be, I mean, every day I wake up and I have a purpose and a mission that I'm living for, and I know I know that my heart's at peace. Like I just feel at peace.
Right.
I've been there. My body is not even at peace when I'm at a job where I don't even feel like I should be there. And it doesn't mean that's a bad job. It's just not for me. Just so I think it's a lot of people right now. I've been talking about in my podcast as well that this time off that some of the people might have from jobs that they don't like is maybe a blessing so that they can do something that they do like. And like I said, I think that can be also part of their healing journey. So you said people give up too early because they don't have an outcome in mind. So they don't have a goal, basically. They can't
Mhm.
see what they are trying to achieve. They don't have a method that they're a proven method that works. And then they just give up too early. And I mean, I see that all the time too. So your brain tap is, I mean, the more I learn about, the more I'm just so intrigued. I mean, you can retrain your brain. You can build these new neural pathways, it sounds like, and speed up this whole process where people can break their habits and be able to have lasting change. When I was talking to Sean, the lady that works for you, she was saying that people actually have results that last when they're doing this versus some other things, some other binaural beats and things like that, where they kind of go back to where they were. And it's like, I see the same thing with supplements. People will take certain supplements and then they don't really have a full protocol that actually is getting them from A to Z, and then they still have their problem and wonder why they keep feeling better, but then they don't feel better, and then they feel better. So can you explain why what your product is? And actually, I think I see it in the background. Would you mind showing people
Yeah.
what it is?
Yeah. That one, just a moment. That's a sample one. This one, unfortunately, isn't charged up. I just had it sitting there. But we have lights in the ears that you can see here, and we have lights in the eyes. So when somebody's using it and they put it on, the visor lights are working to trigger the optic nerve. So instead of just being like binaural beats, we also have isochronic tones. We have frequency response in there. And we find that this all together works like a symphony it turns on a symphony of brainwaves. So the key thing here is that if most everybody would agree that if you're not stressed, you can make better choices. If you're stressed, you make bad choices typically. It might trigger foods you don't really want to eat all the time, or attitudes. You treat people differently when you're high stressed. So in the process of doing that, what we do is we're going to lower that stress. We're going to start visualizing on your timeline the changes you want to make. I talk about, you get what you rehearse in life, not always what you intend. There's a saying, all the road to hell is paved with great intentions. That's because you have these great intentions, but then something happens. Mike Tyson said it best: everybody has a plan until they get hit. So that's why we're talking about there's a big difference between a goal and an outcome. An outcome is something you absolutely positively can achieve and will achieve today. A goal is, let's say I wanted to weigh 200 pounds, let's say, and I wanted to do that. My outcome today would be eating sparingly and naturally and only at mealtime, drinking my 8 to 10 glasses of water, chewing my food slowly, enjoying it, making sure, in my case, a 60, 30, 30 or whatever, or 40, 30, 30 diet, whatever you're on, I actually do a keto kind of thing, but whatever you're doing, if you do that during the day, you should give yourself a smiling face or whatever, give yourself a grade because that is going to happen over time. Weight is one of these things too. A lot of people are dealing with their weight these days, and it's because of all the processed foods. And you can't just, right now, today, no one on earth can get away without taking supplements. You can think you can, unless you're Saint Germain, who can basically change, iron into gold. You're not going to take junk food. Even at the grocery store, a lot of the foods there that we think are healthy, if you're not getting organic food, you're just getting it from the grocery store and you're doing all this, that food is going to cause a toxic load in the system. And that's going to have a toxic effect on the brain. And with most people not sleeping well at night, that's the only time we detox the brain. If you do not sleep, don't get level 4 sleep. So the key to the brain is, number 1, getting it to detox at night. Number 2, feeding it correctly during the day. And it loves outcomes. And of course, goals are good too. Long-term thinking is, in all the studies they show is that the kids with long-term thinking are the ones that become the most successful. Like they did one with Oreo cookies. I don't really support Oreo cookies, but they they showed that if they gave the kids an Oreo cookie and they said, hey, eat this Oreo cookie if you want, but if you wait till we return, we're going to give you 2 Oreo cookies.
Mm.
Well, more than half of them ate the Oreo cookie. They couldn't even wait for the teacher to get back because the immediate gratification was so strong. And they followed around the students that didn't eat the Oreo cookie. And they found out that they were almost 3 times more successful in their life on a physical level, like money wise and things like that, because they had delayed gratification.
Mm.
I think that's one skill that's really undervalued in today's society is,
Yeah.
you can't have it right now, so be okay with it. But what most people do, they get upset, they get angry, they get mad, they all these negative emotions, because most of them come from the thinking of trying to make a change to something you have no choice over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where if you're stressed about something you can do something about, usually you're in action and you do it and you don't get stressed because you're in action. Your body's moving and you're going through it. But if you don't do anything, and that's one of the, I love what Dalai Lama said. He said, if you're under stress, there's 2 things you can do. 1, do something about it if you can. 2, if you can't do anything about it, stop stressing about it. It's pretty simple, but that's not so simple when it's happening to you. If something stressful is happening to you personally, of course, you're going to take offense to that. And you want to, everyone thinks there's a really good saying that I like to tell my clients that man is complex, but God is simple. So if or innate, whatever you want to call it, our body knows what to do. The universal intelligence, God, whatever you want to call it, it knows how to heal us. The problem is we're not giving it the right, you can't get mad at the garden if you didn't prepare the soil, plant the right seeds and water it.
Right.
But people will get mad at their own life when they haven't evaluated their life. They haven't changed those things that they can. And, we weren't taught how to think. That's a big problem we have with our schools.
Yeah.
We're only taught what to think. Here, we're going to test you on this. And then they go, well, why do I need that? Our brain needs to know a reason why. That's why, that cynic guy that did the YouTube video where he's talking about your reason why and why it motivates people to do their job. That's really important for people. We need to have a internal reason. Like with COVID, we're being told do all these things because we're going to be safe from this illness, but it's all negatively driven. If you watch the news, in fact, one of my secrets to getting rid of happiness, if somebody out there is way too happy, all you have to do is turn on CNN. And you're going to be depressed and anxious and stressed out before the program's over, because they're going to show you all these things you have no choice over.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that this the BrainTap, do you mind showing them the lights, the side where the lights are come out?
This one's not working. I'd have to go downstairs to
Oh, it's fine. It's just I just want them to see it again so they get an idea.
Yeah, what I can do is I can post the link. We have a YouTube that's just the facts BrainTap. I can post it to your notes section for those people who want to see
I'll
it.
make a note of that.
Yeah.
So there's lights that come out of this thing, and it goes into your eye, your optic nerve, right? That's where the light is signaled. If someone has damage in their optic nerve, like there's neuropathy or they're just not sending the signal correctly for some reason, can this device actually help repair that optic nerve?
Well, what we find is that just like with all neuropathy, we use light therapy on people's feet and hands, because when you bring the blood, what happens with light, all light, we're using 470 nanometer light in the eyes and 630 and 470 in the ears. Those light frequencies, the photons are absorbed by the body. What happens then is they create vasodilation, micro blood flow. So this blood flow creates circulation and creates a nitric oxide release. It then creates, for those out there that are into the science, it creates something called ATP. You can think of ATP like the currency. Like if we were to transact information at a store, we need dollar bills. In our body, we need ATP. So if somebody doesn't have energy, that's why we say BrainTap helps you with the energy economy. We live in an economy right now where people don't feel like doing anything. At the end of the day, they're stressed out. They're not really handling their life very well. But what we can do with light is we can reboot the brain with light. Now we've never done a study to see if it would repair the optic nerve, so I can't really speak to that, but we've had people with different sight disorders, like shoot, there's one I'm thinking of, but just spaced it. The not as often as I'd like, but we've had people report back that they don't wear their glasses anymore.
Wow.
They're doing things now. I usually only wear glasses when I'm looking at the computer now. I didn't have to wear glasses 5 years ago, but that's the way it works, I guess, when you get younger and better looking. So yeah.
The computer, I mean, I wear glasses just to get the blue light out of it. I mean, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, and we work with Dan DeBon with Radiation Nation. What he showed was that our device is their first go-to device to help people with EMF damage.
Really?
Our device has less EMF, even on Bluetooth, it has less EMF than a light bulb. So, but it also retrains the nervous system. So we have a doctor, his name is Dr. EMF. He's out of Portland, Oregon, Dr. Russ Court. And he's done a lot of research with us in showing how we can improve this electromagnetic. There's about 20% of the people out there that have a real problem with EMF. You know, they even have to like turn the power off in their house at night so they can have a good night's sleep and things like that. They use the blue blocker glasses, and I have a pair here in my office too that I wear at night if I have to do some work after 8 o'clock or something.
Yeah. So what does it feel like when someone is doing a brain tap session?
Well, most people will tell us that they have like a feeling of no time, like they're there, but then they're not there. And their body might feel very light or it might feel heavy. These are sensations people have during relaxation. Some people actually have a tingling sensation because your skin also holds a lot of stress on your body. Your first sensory organ was your skin, and then it folded in, made your eyes, it folded in, made your nose and your ears and your mouth. So your skin, that's why when somebody touches you or something like that, there's a certain, that's a powerful connection. Some people don't like to be touched, and that's also the way it works. But in the process, so you're in that state, and we're really taking you out of your conscious everyday reality, just in your mind, but your body will be disassociated for a little bit. When that happens, the brain is able to reset. That's why we call it rebooting. And what we show is that if you do a brain tap session in the middle of the afternoon, that you get up to 80% of the energy you had in the morning.
Wow.
So it's like a reboot for the day. And we have one of the studies that I was supposed to give at the end of this month, actually, with National Institute of Health, which got canceled. They still published my study, but we did a study with 200 people. We did a pre and post, like you saw us doing at Iridology, where we're doing the scans with the HRV. And we had 200 of them that showed, when we did a pre and post with people, we had a 27.5% improvement in neurological function across the board. In 6 weeks from then, if they were able to do it 3 times a week, that became their neurological norm. So they were able to hold that for 6 months. And then, of course, when they did it, they'd still get a boost, but you're not going to get that big a boost every time. That's going to become your normal. And in our clinics, we would want somebody to get up to about 80% neurological function before we, put them on a maintenance program, so that we knew that their body was functioning at the highest level, and give them techniques, including the brain tap, but other things as well, and supplements and things like that they need to keep their body. We believe in the whole, mind, body, spirit kind of thing, that we're very big on the right supplements.
Yeah. Well, everyone that watches me definitely knows I'm very into the right supplements too. So I'm glad that you tied that into it, because I like to have people talk about how things like your gut affect your brain, but I like the fact that we get to bring people like you on who really understand how our brain affect our gut and the overall health and state of our body, and really just tying the whole picture in, because everything makes a difference. I mean, we're a mind, a body, a spirit, and there's root causes in each different area that need to be addressed if we're going to just be completely restored, is really the word I like to use for it. So, okay, so you mentioned that there's a therapeutic way to use it, and then eventually you put them on a maintenance. Again, it reminds me of supplements in that way. What does a therapy look like versus what is a maintenance dosage
Yes.
the idea of how you use brain tap look
Typically, when somebody's, let's take a concussion person, because we're talking about neurological issues, and we do a lot with concussion, like Life University uses it. A lot of the chiropractic schools like Parker, these are all schools that use brain tap as their take-home program. But when they're there, they can do it. So let's say you do all your therapy at the end, before sending them home, because during neurological work is a lot of work. It's not, I mean, they'll feel tired because they've worked their brain. The brain's using 80 about 25% of the energy. So then before they leave, they do a reboot. Now they're going to feel energized. We even do this when we're working with people that they're going to oncology centers and doing radiation if they need to. They can reboot, they can drive themselves home. They don't feel tired because their nervous system is rebooted. So we do that. They need to do that at least a minimum of 3 times a week at the clinic. And for 6 weeks, we found in our study that we got about a 30% improvement in neurological function, but also 30% blood flow to the damaged areas of the brain. And that was done with the SPECT scan technology.
Wow.
So when you have blood flow and circulation, now you can feed those neurons, give them the energy they need, the ATP in other words, and the nutrients they need. Because a lot of people are giving nutrients to the brain, but they don't get to the brain. Because if you're too stressed out, the brain isn't going to process that. But if you're relaxed, we have one group in Provo, Utah, that does addiction therapy, and they do an amino acid that they do intravenously while they're doing BrainTap. And they had a big special on us on NBC when they showed how it was working. And even though it wasn't really about BrainTap, it was about their therapy, which was going so well. They said that they were getting up to 25% more in absorption of the nutrient into the brain, which they could measure when they used BrainTap rather than not. And they were asking me why that is. I said, well, it's because they're in parasympathetic mode and the body's going to be absorbing and healing. If you're in stress mode, nutrients can help, but it takes longer. If you can get them relaxed and give them the nutrients, it's like putting kerosene on a fire. You're going to get a much better result. So once they're done with the chronic care, what we find, and we also give them the app, like all of our doctors, and even somebody listening to this podcast, they can go on to, right now we're giving a free app away called gobraintap.com. And they can go there, it's 30 days, no cost to them at all. But our doctors have their own link like that. They give it out to their patients. And we give it to them to give to their patients for 15 to 30 days free while they're first starting their therapy, so that they don't have to pay for anything else right then, but they get to de-stress. They don't get the headset at home. They get that at the clinic, but they use the app, and they use their own earbuds at home or their earphones. And and they do it every day. We have AM programs for the morning that wake up the brain. We call digital coffee. We have go to sleep sessions like Quaalude for the brain. We put the brain to sleep at night, and then we have reboot sessions during the day. And, like you said in the beginning, we actually have over 1,000 sessions now because we have so many to do with neurofeedback now. Wow. But when you go on maintenance, we found that the nervous system itself wants to reset every 72 hours. So whatever you did today, let's say you did something to improve your nervous system, like worked out. Well, that workout, that's why you have to go work out again in 72 hours. That's why they say every 2 to 3 days. And we found that to be true with us, that if they can come in, that's why they're 3 times a week. But when they get done and we send them home and they have their BrainTap for home use, we tell them a minimum of 3 times a week they need to do their brain tapping, whether it's with their headset or with their earbuds, if they don't have the headset. And most people, if they own it, we're very lucky with our app. We have about 28 listenings a month from each person that uses the BrainTap app. So they don't just buy it and not use it. They're buying it and using it. And also they can have other family members using it, when they have it in their home. So it can help the whole family de-stress.
So minimum when you're doing therapy 3 times a week. And I mean, people could literally do this every day, right?
Yes. We do it. I do it every day. I do it twice a day because that's, of course, my business. But I get up in the morning, I do my digital coffee instead of real coffee. And then in the middle of the day, when I'm starting at 2 o'clock, most people don't realize this. The reason you get tired at 2 o'clock is your temperature, your body temperature drops at that time. So people are used to going out and getting a coffee or getting food or whatever to trigger their thing. What their body, that's why we used to take naps, People don't want to take naps anymore. So BrainTap can be a power nap. It can be a 10-minute session or a 20-minute session and just reboot the brain at that time.
Oh, I like that idea. So I've been using that 15-day free trial, and I'm working on getting that link on my website as well too, so anyone that listens can always have that. And I've been really enjoying it. And the only thing is I don't have the headset yet, which I'm working on that because I really do think that there's something amazing about that. Can you explain what's the difference if someone uses if they're just using the, what would you call them, meditations?
Yeah, if they're using just the earbuds, the app without we tell
Headset,
people
yeah.
the phone itself, when you're listening to it and you're doing it with your earbuds, that's kind of like watching a movie on your phone. You can do it. It's pretty cool. We get to do that. But if you put the headset on, it's like going to IMAX. You get the full blown experience. I mean, there's a lot more to it because you get the light therapy, but you're not getting the light therapy with just the sound. So we also know on a neurological level, so if there's some doctors listening, they can understand it, but 40% of your brain is made up of your frontal cortex, right? So this part of the brain, unfortunately, when we text people, when they try to meditate, this is every meditation process. I don't care what it is. Almost everyone stresses out when they meditate. They don't do it right because they're worried. Am I doing it right? Am I breathing right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? They can't. And with BrainTap, you don't do any of that. Just put it on. The brain's going to follow the algorithm. It's going to take you through the discovery. But also, when you have the sound, you could have some of that. What we do know is that some of the brain will shut down. Like when you close your eyes, your brain is automatically saying, "Hey, it must be bedtime. Must be time to sleep." The same thing happens if you were at a movie and the scary part of the movie came on the screen. You go, "Oh, that's just a movie," and you close your eyes because you're turning off that executive functioning. But when you have light, the other thing with light, the reason that the headsets work about 30% better is that you've probably been to a lecture before and you couldn't really hear the lecturer. And then you changed your view so you could look around somebody. Now you have line of sight with the lecturer. Now you could hear them. That's because our brain, 30% of our hearing actually comes in through our eyes. Most people don't know that. It doesn't come in through your ears. And when you're doing that, and so when we're bringing in the light frequencies, we're keeping the frontal lobe active. We're actually engaging it. So it's now relaxed in a problem-solving state. And we're using lights in the ears at a frequency of 297 hertz frequency, that is Noget frequency. It has to do with the brain and the bones. It's instructing the body to turn off sympathetic overload and turn on the parasympathetic system. And this does it without your awareness. So as long as you put it on, now those frequencies are still there in the binaural beats and the isochronic tones when you do just the app. What you're missing is the frequency of the light, which is, so it's an added thing. And for some people, $600 is not in their program right now, but they can at least get the app and start doing it.
Yeah. So the earphones itself, are they any different than using your own earphones?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, our earphones, the earphone itself isn't, but what we've done is we put red and blue lights in the ears.
Okay.
And the reason for that is we have meridian points in our ears. In those meridian lines, when we drive energy into them, people do this with lasers all the time. They'll put a laser on different spots, like to help somebody stop smoking or lose weight. They'll find the meridian that has to do with that. What some doctors asked me a while ago said, how can we do that at the same time we're doing BrainTap? And I got thinking about it for our autistic kids. And I thought, why don't we just build them into the earphone, see what happens? And we'll do the frequency of 297 hertz and see what happens. Well, the kids loved it. They would just pass out. The parents would go, wow, I'm not leaving here till I get one of those to take home, because my kid was just stimming and now he's passed out. And what we found was that the lights in the ears, even though it's not noise canceling, because there's so much going on, it becomes almost like it creates this Gaussian field, or this field of energy that you're in, like a cocoon while you're doing it. And it's all healthy. I mean, there's nothing negative about it. So that when they sit down and do it, so the light is not only flashing at a certain pulse rate, it also has a nanometer wave. So we're using all of those things to trigger the relaxation response as somebody listens to the BrainTap.
Wow, that's so incredible how there's so many different ways that you're getting the person with the lights, even in the ear, there's lights, the sound, the meditation. It's no wonder that, in the beginning you had mentioned how people can really speed up their change process versus instead of 18 months on your own. When you use a device like this, you can do it in like 21 to 90 days, it sounded like. Yep. So that makes sense. I mean, we're not only rewiring our brain, but it sounds like it's really kind of rewiring our whole body almost too.
Yeah. Well, 70% of your nervous system's in your brain, 30%'s in your body. So like, for instance, we work a lot with chiropractors. When they adjust the body, we actually show it adjust the brain. When you adjust the brain, we actually have a screen that we have in our HRV. It's really data pulse analysis, because we're measuring energy across the system through the cartilage. And we had it designed by a group in Russia for us. And we can actually show the spine. And people are blown away when they have had back surgery and it shows that there's no energy through there. They go, how does it know that? I go, it knows the energy in all your systems. It can show. So what we show is that even by doing a brain tap, no adjustment, you can get more energy flow through the spine. Now, if you get an adjustment or work with, that's why we mostly work with medical doctors on a professional level, because they're doing what they do. And then we get the brain wiring around that change. And so they can get better results, better clinical results, or at least give the patient more of a reason to come. Because sometimes they do the same thing every week, but with brain tap, with all of our sessions, they'll get a different experience every week. So it's not like they're coming back and getting the same treatment. They're getting different treatments.
Yeah. So are there any side effects to this?
The only side effect, there's a lot of positive side effects, like you'll sleep better, you'll relax and do those things. But the negative is if you are photaic epileptic, there's about 10% of epilepsy is photaic, which means if you're somebody out there that when you're driving down a country road and the trees are flashing going by like this and you get nauseous, you probably wouldn't want to use our lights. You just use the earbuds. We've never had any trouble with the sound files, but we've had a couple people tell us that they got a little nauseous by using it. But we've helped a lot of people with vertigo. My wife had that before when I first met her, and she doesn't have it anymore. And we've got a lot of feedback from that because we're balancing the brain. Most of the neurological problems we have, I would say 70% of them have to do with brain speed differences. The hemispheres aren't communicating. And this has to do with, if I ask you to think of, Jacqueline, one of the favorite times in your life, when that favorite time comes up for you, it's not in one place. It's not like you go to a filing cabinet and the whole story's there. You've got to go one place and get the pictures, one place get the sound, one place get the feeling, one place put it on a timeline. You're representing that whole thing in your brain. And as it reassembles, if there's been any damage to any part of the brain or if stress is there, that causes the malfunction, that causes the information not to flow freely. That's why they say never make major life decisions under stress, right? Because we don't think right. So, but our brain, once we learn how to manage that stress should be felt by the body and released by the body. If it's stress in the mind, which unfortunately right now, all stress is brain stress. People are our brains are inflamed. Inflammation is probably the biggest reason that people have all the poor health they have today, regardless of how it shows up and what disease it shows up under. It could all be linked back to the body in an increased state of inflammation. It's not functioning the way it was supposed to. So if we can bring down that inflammation, get the body to regulate itself, and like I said, get great sleep, there'd be no need for brain tap probably. But now since that's a big problem people have, we're here to help them and support them.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of people that have brain injuries, and I'm just curious, what's your greatest story of testimony that you've seen with someone that has a brain injury?
Well, one of them with Dr. Court was an ex-NFL player. He couldn't even write his name. He was so bad. When he left the NFL, he was fine. But he had those CTEs that they don't say is happening in the NFL, but when he started seeing Dr. Court, what happened was after about 6 months, he was not quite back to normal yet, but pretty close. He could drive himself again. He could speak and communicate. He could write. That was probably our biggest, but we've had so many with, like we were featured in People magazine in 2006. It was because we had over 100 people we submitted that had lost half their weight and kept it off for more than 5 years.
Wow.
So I used to have a weight loss franchise. So we literally would see thousands of people every week. And it was normal for people back then though, this was in the 90s. And this was reported in 2006. I sold the company actually in 2006. But in the process of doing that, that was normal for people to take half their weight off, and then keep it off, because we kept them in our program for 2 years. And if you signed up with me into my program, we had what we called a commitment guarantee. We guaranteed we were going to do certain things for them. You can't ethically or morally guarantee a client's results, but you can say this education is available to you until you lose the weight. So after their year was over, we put them on a maintenance program. And if we could take the weight off in the year, which usually about 1 pound to 2 pounds a week would come off, And then if we kept that off for 1 year, we found that it was pretty much gone. It takes about 2 years to rebuild your whole body. So if you can get your whole body rebuilt based on the new information, we know that your thoughts can actually change gene expression. Up to 1,200 gene expressions change when you change your thoughts. So what happens is they become a different person. I remember the guy in People magazine, Rob, who's actually still a friend of mine on LinkedIn, he said when he sees that picture, he doesn't even know who that is, his before picture. It's not even in his mind anymore. He wrote that off. It's like, and that's what people have to realize is you're not doomed to live out your past. That's why we live in the present. But, and we can have whatever future we want if we're willing to work for it, develop it, and create it. If you're going to let the future come to you, then you don't have any complaints. You've got to take what you get. But this is a day and age where the technology's out there. There's the help out there. I mean, you can go get all the right nutrients to keep your body healthy, from so many different spaces. I mean, I can look behind you. I'm sure that I would be buying a lot of supplements from you. If you saw what I take every morning, it's crazy, but I believe in them. Everything I take has a specific reason to keep me healthy, because I know that's my best health insurance. It's so easy to keep your body healthy if you do a little bit every day. If you don't do anything, and you have to work out too. Somewhere you got to start physically working the body, because our body is designed to move and breathe. If it's not moving and breathing, it will start to atrophy. In fact, there's signs, stress shows it actually shrinks your brain.
Right.
So if you want to shrink your brain, stay stressed. I mean, you can't do it. Remember, if you can't do anything about it, you got to learn coping skills that get you to at least not let it affect you. The old saying, be in the world, but not of it. That's what they need.
Yeah, well, you had mentioned that the BrainTap helps to bring oxygen to the brain and the body, and the brain needs a lot of oxygen to function.
Right. We see one of the biggest problems besides sleep is also they're not drinking water. A lot of people, mostly in the wellness space, everybody knows, hey, you need to drink, half your body's weight in ounces of water, but it seems like that got missed somewhere. They go, I drink Coke all day, that's good. Or I drink coffee all day, that's good. No, what's good is water all day, and your body needs that. So there's a really good book called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. We would have every client read that, because once they read it, all their symptoms are there. And at least we can get rid of some of them. And our biggest step was always getting people off sodas. If we could get them off soda pop, because there's nothing good about that. I mean, if you have it every once in a while, like if you are with family or you're at a celebration and you want to have a root beer or Coke or whatever you want to do, that's fine. But some people, we had clients actually drinking 12 or more every day and no water.
Wow.
I mean, and I find that the Diet Coke is the worst. People that have that are like fiends. They can't live without their Diet Coke. You might get some responses in your well, they probably wouldn't be watching this podcast if they were drinking Diet Coke, because that's not too good.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Porter. Well, I just love picking your brain about the brain. I just am so fascinated in how it works, and all these little things that affect it, and just even how your BrainTap can really just speed up the process in people's making changes, and whether it's weight loss or their immune system is low, or they're stressed and anxious about COVID-19 or losing their job, or whatever the situation is. It's incredible how that technology that you've created can really just bring people at peace, lower their stress, get them back into that parasympathetic mode, increase their energy. I mean, the list goes on and on. Decrease their pain, have better brain function, better optic nerve function. So I just am so grateful that you came on. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Sure. Well, they can find me online at BrainTap Tech at Facebook, or Dr. Patrick Porter on Facebook. They can also find us, Instagram's the same ones, I think. But at the website, you can go to braintap.com. But if they want a free book and they want a free app for this period of time, they just go to gobraintap.com.
Okay.
There's no credit card.
How long does that last?
It's 30 days.
Okay, 30 days and no credit card needed to try it. Okay,
just try it out, see what you can do. And I recommend just going through one of the series and just doing the morning ones, the afternoon ones. Just now, if you're home, do it 2 or 3 times a day. It won't hurt you.
Right? Who knows?
Your stress.
Who knows what happens if you do that and we get out of quarantine? I mean, who knows how your life might be changed? I mean, for like a really incredible good.
Yeah.
So, It's free, you guys. Just try it, and you never know. The only investment you really have is your time. So, which some of you guys probably have a lot of time that you're trying to figure out what to do with right now.
Yeah.
So, anyways, well, thanks again for coming on the show, Dr. Porter, and thank you, listeners, for watching. We will return again next week, and I just appreciate you all. This is a joy for Dr. Porter and for myself to really just help educate the world and be able to bring you information that's cutting edge and that can really change your life for good. So, thanks again for joining, and we will return next week. Have a nice day.
All right.
My Super Immunity Boost Juice Guide is now available on thewellnesstrinity.com. You'll learn how to grow broccoli microgreens, the ingredients I put in my green juice, and super nutritious supplements you can add to enhance your immune system. Again, go to thewellnesstrinity.com and you'll receive your free Super Immunity Boost Juice Guide.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Trinity podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more wellness tips to help you achieve optimal health. Don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.